When love ends, we tend to explain it in emotional terms: heartbreak, betrayal, loss, disappointment. We replay events, analyze words, and try to assign blame. But beneath the emotional storm, something far more ancient is happening. A breakup is not only an emotional experience, it is an archetypal one. It activates a story as old as humanity itself, the separation between the known and the unknown, the self and its shadow, the ego and the soul. What we call heartbreak is actually the psyche undergoing initiation. In the realm of depth psychology, love is never just personal. The person we fall for represents far more than flesh, personality, or circumstance. They carry within them an entire myth. We project our unclaimed potential, our unlived emotions, and our forgotten innocence onto them. They become the vessel through which we experience unity, wholeness, and meaning. In their eyes, we see who we could be. And when that mirror is shattered, we don't just lose a partner, we lose a piece of the world that once reflected our own completeness. This is why heartbreak feels cosmic. It feels as if something sacred has been taken, as if life itself has lost its color. The intensity of that grief isn't just about the person, it's about the symbolic death of the image we held of ourselves when we were with them. Every love story secretly mirrors a deeper pattern, the eternal dance between union and separation, creation and destruction, life and death. In mythology, there is always a fall before transformation. The lovers are separated so that the hero can descend into the underworld, face the unknown, and return reborn. A breakup is that descent. It is the psyche's way of pulling you back into your own depths. The loss forces you to confront everything that was hidden beneath the comfort of companionship. Your insecurities, your dependence, your need to be seen. Without the external reflection, you are left with the raw truth of your own being. The ego resists this process. It clings to the idea that something went wrong, that someone is to blame, that love should have lasted forever. But the deeper truth is that every ending serves a purpose in the larger cycle of growth. The breakup, painful as it may be, is a symbolic death designed to awaken a deeper consciousness. Through loss, the psyche forces you to meet the parts of yourself that were asleep. When you fall in love, you are drawn to someone who embodies the qualities your soul longs to integrate. The confident one who teaches you courage, the compassionate one who teaches you softness, the distant one who teaches you boundaries. Each relationship carries a lesson encoded within its dynamic. When it ends, that lesson becomes visible, but only through the lens of pain. You start to see how much of your identity was built around the other person's presence, how much you relied on their energy to feel whole. And in that realization lies the hidden invitation to become the source of what you once sought outside yourself. Breakups feel personal, but they are also collective. They echo the archetypal wound of separation, the human longing to return to oneness, to feel complete again. Every time we love, we momentarily touch that oneness. Every time we lose, we are reminded of the great divide that exists between what we desire and what we can hold. This tension drives the evolution of consciousnesses. It is through loss that we awaken, through separation that we remember who we are beyond roles, attachment, and need. To see a breakup through this lens is to understand that pain has meaning. It is not a punishment, but a passage. The emotions that overwhelm you, grief, anger, longing, are not obstacles to healing, but the very instruments of transformation. They strip away illusion and ego, forcing you into contact with something more authentic. The breakdown becomes the threshold to breakthrough. When you start to see your heartbreak as archetypal, you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And begin asking, what part of me is being reborn through this? You begin to notice that the same patterns appear again and again, the same fears, the same desires, the same endings, until you finally understand their message. You realize that love was never meant to complete you, it was meant to reveal you. Every breakup is the psyche's way of restoring balance between the inner world and the outer one. When you attach too much to another person, you project your inner world onto them. Their departure withdraws that projection, returning the energy to where it belongs, within you. It is not cruelty from the universe, it is correction. Through the pain of loss, you are being guided back to your own center. The end of a relationship marks not just emotional closure, but spiritual initiation. You are being invited to reclaim your projection, to integrate your shadow, and to rediscover the wholeness that was never truly lost. The breakup, therefore, is not merely the death of a connection, it is the death of illusion, the dismantling of false identity, and the beginning of a deeper relationship with your own soul. When a relationship ends, it often feels like you've lost something irreplaceable, a person, a connection, a shared history. But in truth, what's lost isn't the person, it's the reflection of yourself that you once saw in them. Relationships, especially the ones that cut the deepest, are mirrors, revealing parts of your psyche that otherwise remain invisible. You don't lose a person, you meet your mirror, and through that meeting, you come face to face with the truth of who you are, who you pretend to be, and who you're afraid to become. When two people fall in love, what's really happening is an exchange of projections. We don't fall in love with a person as they truly are. We fall in love with the parts of ourselves that we recognize or wish to recognize in them. Their strength reflects our potential, their affection validates our worth, their presence confirms our significance. They become the living embodiment of our inner world. But this is also why love can feel intoxicating and terrifying at once. Because it's not just about another person, it's about seeing yourself through their eyes. When that reflection disappears, the psyche experiences withdrawal. You feel that something essential has been taken from you because symbolically it has. A breakup forces the withdrawal of your own projection, the part of you that lived through their presence. This is why loss feels like death. You're not just grieving them, you're grieving the version of you that existed when you were loved by them. That's the hidden truth behind heartbreak. The pain is personal, but its root is psychological. The mirror doesn't just reflect beauty, it reflects shadow. When you love someone, they mirror not only your light, but also your wounds. The insecurities you try to hide, the fears you suppress, the needs you deny, all come alive in intimacy. Love brings out your most vulnerable self, and that exposure can be unbearable. Every argument, every disappointment, every unmet expectation reveals another layer of the unconscious. This is why the people we love most have the power to hurt us most. They touch the parts of us we don't yet know how to love. To meet your mirror is to meet your truth. Sometimes the mirror shows you your capacity to give without boundaries. Sometimes it shows your need to control, your fear of abandonment, or your hunger for validation. The person who triggers you isn't your enemy. They are your teacher, reflecting the internal dynamics that shape your life. When they leave, the mirror breaks, but the reflection remains within you, asking to be understood. This is the sacred purpose of heartbreak, to return you to yourself. When the other person departs, their absence becomes the space through which you can finally see what was projected outward. You begin to realize that what you admired in them was something dormant in you. Their confidence, their compassion, their mystery, all qualities that now beg to be awakened within your own being. And what you resented in them, their coldness, their detachment, their avoidance, those two are unintegrated aspects of your own shadow. The breakup becomes a psychological mirror shattering, each fragment revealing a different side of your inner landscape. Most people mistake this process for loss, but it is actually revelation. You don't lose love, you lose illusion. You don't lose a soulmate, you lose the image that carried your unlived potential. When that image fades, you are given a chance to integrate what was once projected outward. The qualities you sought in them were never theirs to give, they were yours to reclaim. This is why no relationship is ever wasted. Every person who enters your life holds a mirror up to your unconscious, helping you see what you cannot yet hold consciously. Some mirrors are kind, others are brutal, but all are necessary. The one who adored you reflected your light. The one who betrayed you reflected your shadow. Both were teachers, both essential to your individuation. And yet, we often chase reflections long after they've faded. We try to resurrect the image, to return to the feeling of wholeness we experienced in their gaze. But what we truly long for is not them. It's the version of ourselves that love revealed. The breakup strips that illusion away, leaving us with the raw material of self-awareness. In the silence that follows, you begin to see that you were never incomplete. You simply needed the mirror to remember what was already there. Every heartbreak is an initiation into self-knowledge. When you meet someone deeply, you are not encountering them by chance. You are encountering a reflection chosen by your own psyche. They appear in your life not to complete you, but to show you the parts of yourself that remain unintegrated. Through them, you learn the difference between projection and presence, between attachment and authenticity. And though it feels like loss when they leave, it is actually liberation, the return of your own power, the retrieval of your own reflection. To meet your mirror is to encounter both heaven and hell within yourself. Love shows you what you're capable of when open, and heartbreak shows you what you're capable of when broken. Both are necessary mirrors, both sacred thresholds of growth. The people who come and go are not random. They are reflections of the lessons your soul is ready to face. And in the end, the mirror teaches one truth, that what you see in another has always been within you, waiting to be recognized. Within every human being lives a part of the self that refuses to be seen, a hidden dimension composed of everything we repress, deny, and disown. This is the shadow, the unseen force that shapes our desires, fears, and choices while remaining just beyond our conscious awareness. It doesn't vanish simply because we ignore it. In fact, the more we reject it, the stronger it becomes. The shadow thrives in secrecy. It hides behind our smiles, our rationalizations, our need to appear good, and in relationships, especially in the aftermath of a breakup. This shadow awakens with an intensity that feels almost unbearable. When love collapses, what rises to the surface is not only grief, it's the shadow demanding attention. Every suppressed feeling you avoided during the relationship begins to echo back. Anger you denied, resentment you buried, dependency you disguised as devotion. These emotions don't appear out of nowhere. They were always there, waiting beneath the structure of connection. The breakup simply removes the distractions that kept them dormant. And yet, instead of facing them, most people run into denial, into blame, into another person. Because facing the shadow means confronting the truth about ourselves, and that truth can feel like annihilation. The shadow doesn't want to be integrated, it wants to be obeyed in silence. It resists illumination because its power comes from invisibility. The moment you look at it directly, it loses control. That's why it manifests indirectly through projection, jealousy, judgment, and emotional chaos. You think you're angry at your ex, but often you're angry at your own reflection, the part of you that tolerated too much, stayed too long, or expected salvation from someone else. You believe they hurt you, but beneath that pain is the realization that you abandoned yourself first. The shadow hides behind these narratives, using them as shields to avoid exposure. In psychological terms, the shadow represents everything incompatible with our chosen self-image. If you see yourself as kind, your aggression hides there. If you see yourself as confident, your insecurity hides there. If you see yourself as spiritual, your pride hides there. Each identity we construct creates an opposite, and the shadow is that opposite. When the illusion of harmony breaks through conflict, loss, or betrayal, the shadow finds its opening. It steps out, raw and unfiltered, reminding you that light without darkness is incomplete. This is why breakups often feel like war, not just with another person, but within yourself. The parts of you you've suppressed for years rise to the surface. Suddenly, you're haunted by memories, emotions, and impulses that feel alien. You might lash out, withdraw, idealize, or demonize. These reactions are not random. They're expressions of the shadow trying to survive exposure. It fights to stay unseen because being seen would mean transformation, and transformation means death to the identity it's been protecting. The ego fears this death more than anything. It will do whatever it takes to preserve its version of reality, even if that means staying in pain. It will rationalize toxic patterns, defend false narratives, and cling to control, all to avoid admitting what the shadow already knows, that we are not purely good nor purely bad, but both. Integration threatens the ego's simplicity. It complicates the story. It asks us to own our contradictions instead of hiding behind them. The shadow expresses itself through others. What we despise in someone else often points directly to what we've disowned in ourselves. That's why the end of a relationship can feel like betrayal, not only because someone else failed us, but because they mirrored back something we couldn't accept. The traits that infuriate us most, manipulation, coldness, selfishness, are often the ones we repress the hardest. The breakup shatters the illusion and forces us to confront that mirror. The rage we feel is the resistance of the shadow being dragged into the light. But even when confronted, the shadow is cunning. It disguises itself as righteousness, victimhood, or moral superiority. It says, I was the one who loved more, or I was the one who gave everything. These statements often mask deeper motives, the need to control, to be validated, to avoid vulnerability. The shadow doesn't care whether you appear strong or broken. It only cares that you don't see it clearly. It will keep you trapped in emotional cycles, anger, guilt, shame, revenge, as long as you remain unconscious of its presence. To witness the shadow is to dismantle illusion. But this witnessing is brutal because it means acknowledging that everything you judged in another also lives within you. It's the realization that the breakup was not just the collapse of a relationship, but the collapse of the persona you maintained within it. The shadow doesn't fight because it's evil. It fights because it's afraid. Afraid of annihilation, of rejection, of exposure. It believes it must stay hidden to survive, and so after love ends, the real work begins, not in forgetting, but in remembering. The shadow emerges not to destroy you, but to make you whole. Yet its first instinct will always be to resist that wholeness. It will fight to stay unseen, because being seen means you finally become conscious of everything you once ran from. Your fears, your anger, your unmet needs, your quiet hunger for power, your buried shame. And though it will fight fiercely for its place in the dark, every confrontation with it moves you closer to authenticity, closer to understanding the unseen forces that have always shaped your love, your loss, and your becoming. Every relationship you experience is a reflection of your inner state. You don't attract what you desire, you attract what you are, what you believe you deserve, and what remains unresolved within you. The war within, the conflict between your conscious intentions and unconscious patterns, determines who and what enters your life. Until that war is acknowledged and integrated, the same emotional stories will repeat themselves, merely wearing different faces. Love isn't random, it's magnetic. Every person you meet is drawn to the energy of your inner landscape, the harmony or chaos that lives within you. If you are at war with yourself, you will find partners who mirror that turmoil. You'll call it chemistry, fate, or bad luck, but it's none of those things. It's resonance. The universe doesn't send you what you want, it sends you what vibrates at the same frequency as your unresolved emotions. Every unhealed wound acts as a signal, and every suppressed emotion becomes a magnet. When you're torn between who you think you are and what you secretly believe, that tension broadcasts itself. You might crave deep connection, yet fear intimacy. You might want loyalty, but still expect abandonment. You might seek peace while carrying inner chaos. These contradictions create confusion, not only within you, but in the energy you emit. You begin to attract relationships that embody the same split, partners who love but fear closeness, who desire you but resist commitment, who mirror the same instability you fight within yourself. This is the hidden law of attraction. The outer world mirrors the inner conflict. What you judge, deny, or repress will always find a way to reappear through other people. You might leave one relationship behind, swearing never to repeat the same mistake, only to find the same pattern disguised in a new form. This isn't coincidence. It's the psyche trying to complete a story you've left unfinished. Until you resolve the internal war, life will keep giving you opportunities to see it. Through love, through loss, through reflection. The war within is born from disconnection, the separation between your conscious self and your shadow. On one side is your ego, demanding control, safety, and certainty. On the other side is your soul, craving authenticity, freedom, and depth. The ego fears vulnerability, while the soul longs for it. The ego wants to avoid pain, while the soul understands that pain is the path to awareness. Every time you deny your emotional truth, you side with the ego, and the soul retaliates. That inner opposition becomes the blueprint for your outer relationships. You attract people who unconsciously act out the battle you refuse to face. For example, if part of you wants love, but another part believes you're unworthy of it, you'll attract someone who reinforces that belief, someone distant, unavailable, or inconsistent. They will play the role your shadow has written for them, not because they intend to hurt you, but because they match the emotional script you're still living by. The breakup that follows isn't punishment, it's revelation. It exposes the hidden dialogue you've been having with yourself all along. To change what you attract, you must resolve the war within. But this isn't about positive thinking or forced affirmations. It's about facing the parts of you you've rejected. The fearful child, the angry protector, the wounded lover. Each of these inner figures holds a piece of your power. When you integrate them, your energy stabilizes. You stop seeking validation and begin embodying wholeness. Love then no longer comes as a test or a mirror, it comes as a reflection of peace. The inner war ends when you stop fighting your emotions. Most people think healing means erasing pain, but true healing means allowing pain to exist without letting it define you. The moment you stop running from your anger, it becomes strength. The moment you acknowledge your fear, it becomes wisdom. The moment you embrace your loneliness, it transforms into self-intimacy. Integration doesn't make the darkness disappear. It teaches you to move with it consciously. That alignment changes everything you attract. Because energy doesn't lie. If you live in constant self-rejection, you'll meet people who reject you. If you quietly carry resentment, you'll meet people who trigger it. If you live with open acceptance, you'll draw those who meet you with respect and reciprocity. The universe mirrors your self-relationship through every person who crosses your path. The question is never, why did they treat me this way? But rather, what inside me allowed this energy to feel familiar? Every breakup, every disappointment, every repeated pattern is a reflection of the inner dialogue you've refused to change. The outer world merely acts as a messenger, showing you where reconciliation is needed. The war within, the one between your self-love and self-doubt, your authenticity and your fear, your truth and your illusion, determines the battlefield of your relationships. The moment you bring awareness to that war, you begin to shift the vibration that has been calling the same lessons back to you. Your next relationship will not be decided by luck, timing, or circumstance. It will be shaped by the level of harmony within you. Until the wounded parts of you stop fighting the healed parts, until your ego stops resisting your soul, until your heart stops negotiating with fear, you'll keep attracting reflections of the same unresolved conflict. What appears as destiny in love is often nothing more than the echo of your own internal divide, repeating itself until it is finally seen. Healing is often imagined as victory. The final conquest over pain, the moment you rise above your wounds and declare yourself free. But the truth is quieter and far more intricate. Healing isn't about winning the war, it's about seeing it. It's not the triumph of light over darkness, but the awareness that both exist within you and always have. The moment you stop trying to destroy your pain and instead witness it for what it is, transformation begins. Healing isn't the elimination of suffering, it's the expansion of consciousness that allows you to hold suffering without being consumed by it. Every person carries a war within, a war between who they've been taught to be and who they actually are, between the persona that seeks approval and the soul that seeks authenticity. This war doesn't end through resistance, it ends through understanding. You cannot heal what you refuse to see, and yet most people spend their lives trying to escape their pain rather than explore it. We fight our grief with distractions, our anger with guilt, our loneliness with noise. We believe that if we can just move on, we'll find peace. But peace doesn't come from avoidance, it comes from awareness. To see the war is to observe the battlefield of your own psyche. It's to recognize the patterns of self-judgment, the loops of blame, the compulsions that arise from fear. It's to sit with the voices inside you that say, "You're not enough. You should be over this. You're too broken to be loved." Seeing them doesn't mean agreeing with them. It means acknowledging their existence without letting them dictate your life. Each voice belongs to a part of you that was born from pain, and every part deserves to be witnessed. In relationships, this internal war becomes externalized. You project your unhealed wounds onto others and call it fate. You attract people who reflect the battles you're unwilling to face alone. The breakup, the betrayal, the disappointment. These are not random events. They are mirrors showing you what still lives unintegrated within. But instead of seeing the lesson, the ego seeks revenge or resolution. It wants to win, to prove worth, to reclaim power, to be right. Yes, every attempt to win only deepens the illusion of separation. Healing happens the moment you stop trying to conquer what hurt you and start understanding why it hurt so deeply. Seeing the war means recognizing that your pain has purpose, not moral purpose, not punishment, but evolutionary purpose. Every emotion, no matter how dark, holds information about your soul's growth. Anger shows you where boundaries were crossed. Sadness shows you where meaning was lost. Shame shows you where you've internalized rejection. Fear shows you where life is asking for courage. When you witness these emotions without judgment, they begin to guide you instead of imprison you. The war doesn't vanish, but its energy shifts from destruction to revelation. True healing begins when you allow every part of yourself to exist in the same room. The strong and the broken, the forgiving and the furious, the peaceful and the vengeful, they all belong to the same whole. The need to win divides you further, while the willingness to see unites you. Seeing doesn't mean excusing what happened or denying your feelings. It means understanding that those feelings are not enemies but messengers. You don't heal by silencing them, you heal by listening to what they're trying to tell you. Most people misunderstand healing as erasure, as if growth means the pain disappears. But the deepest healing is integration. The wound may remain, but it no longer defines you. The memory still exists, but it loses its emotional grip. This shift doesn't happen through force, it happens through presence. When you can look at your anger and say, "I see you," when you can sit with your grief and whisper, "You can stay," the war begins to dissolve. Awareness disarms what resistance fuels. The act of seeing is radical because it removes the illusion of control. You stop trying to manipulate your emotions and instead allow them to move through you. You realize that healing is not linear, not predictable, not something you can measure. Some days you'll feel free, other days you'll feel like you've returned to the beginning. But even those moments of regression are part of the process. The war within ebbs and flows, and your task is not to win, but to remain conscious in the midst of it. The reason awareness heals is that it transforms identification into observation. Instead of being consumed by pain, you begin to witness it as part of a larger whole. You stop saying, I am broken, and start saying, a part of me is in pain. That simple shift moves you from the battlefield to the observer's seat. You are no longer the soldier, you are the witness, and from that place, you can see how every wound, every heartbreak, every shadowed emotion was never there to destroy you, but to awaken you to yourself. Healing, then, is not about reaching a final state of peace, but cultivating the capacity to see. To see your patterns, your resistance, your tenderness, your truth. The war within doesn't end through dominance, it ends through awareness. Because when you can see the battle clearly, you no longer need to fight blindly. Seeing is what turns pain into wisdom, chaos into clarity, and suffering into understanding.